8 out of 10 people are not engaged at work. That's the result of the latest State of the Workplace report from Gallup. Think about that. That's insane. 8 out of 10 people go to work every day, spend the majority of their lifetime somewhere doing something that they're not actually into. I mean, what a horrible, horrible waste of human potential. Outside of the economic cost, this is really just a shame. Right? And it doesn't really matter what you do. I mean, you could be flipping burgers, delivering packages, or cleaning toilets, right? I have a DHL guy who comes, and he's always got a smile. He's always happy, and you can tell he gets joy meeting all these people every day and bringing them parcels. Well, there's a beautiful film by Wim Wenders about a man who cleans toilet in Japan and finds serenity and beauty in his everyday simple life. So it really doesn't matter what you do. But what matters is why you do it. Right, your actual motivation behind it. We're shifting, and this is, I think, the larger picture here, we're shifting from an extrinsic motivation system where carrots and whips made people work to an intrinsic motivation system. And this has been going on for a while, but was also accelerated in the pandemic. Right, when people for the first time had a sense of autonomy, suddenly deciding about how they're going to spend their time every day. And you can't take that back once this sense of self awakens. Right? Once a sense of autonomy awakens, you can't just go back to fulfilling on job descriptions. Right? And this is a massive transformation that's taking place in our workplace. And it's not just, about new skills or upskilling or all that stuff that people talk about in the context of AI. It's really a shift about how and why we work. Right? We need to focus on intrinsic motivation. And according to self-determination theory, there's 3 aspects to that: autonomy, mastery, and belonging. Right? Autonomy means I'm doing me. I'm doing my thing. I'm choosing to do this. Right? And I have some autonomy around how I'm choosing to do this. And then there's a mastery aspect where I'm learning. Right? And I've talked in my last video about the crisis of learning that we have, but we need to keep learning, right? But learning just enough that it doesn't stretch us too far, right? That we have some level of competence around what we're doing, but there's still something new and exciting, right? We don't want to just do the same thing every day. And that's something that the robot can do anyway, right? So we need to create workplaces where people can continue to develop themselves and grow in doing what they do. And finally, there's belonging, right? And belonging actually comes from creating value for someone, right? All life ultimately creates value, and more value than it consumes, right? Otherwise, a tree wouldn't grow, right? And as humans, we are also meant to create more value than we consume. But in the last century, we've been focusing so much on consumption and on supersizing me and more, that we forgot that the real joy, the greatest bliss comes from adding value to someone else's life. Now, if I have no connection to that, then where would it come from? Right? I've talked to so many corporate people in our trainings that have never actually talked to a customer, and they never understood what their company actually does for them in the end. Right? But it doesn't have to be the external customer, even internally. If I know that what I'm doing adds value, makes somebody else's life easier, that creates a sense of belonging. And especially in a time when loneliness is epidemic and people are, not joining communities anymore, this is so much more important. So we need to really transform our workplaces away from this corporate extraction system that just makes a bunch of rich people richer to really coming back to why we're working. And why we're going to work every day, why we're spending 40 to 60 hours, depending on how you work, every week to add value to someone else's life. Right? We need to make that about that again, about why we work. Right? And give people the autonomy to decide how they're going to do that every day, and give them the opportunity to learn and grow in the process so that they can create something for someone that actually has value to them. And that will be the major workplace transformation that hopefully we'll see, because otherwise I think these systems that we have at the moment are simply going to self-destruct. So think about, why do you go to work every day? What makes you feel like you're doing you, that you're doing your autonomous self, right? What can you learn? Where can you grow? Where can you continue to expand your mastery, right? And most importantly, how are you creating a sense of belonging by adding value to someone else's life? Right? What's the meaning behind why you do what you do? So think about why you are engaged at work or not, right? And if you're not engaged, find a way to make that interesting again. Find a way to connect again to why it is important to you. Right? This is the awakening of relational intelligence, the awakening of an authentic, autonomous self.